Well, very hot, dry conditions continuing here in Alberta, and we're seeing signs of that on the landscape, of course, with this unprecedented wildfire season. Lots of fires up there generating smoke, which is reducing air quality. We're seeing very poor crop growth in southern Alberta. Crops not looking good at all. On a recent trip I took down there in Vulcan County as well, the rivers are very low. Coming out of the mountains for the time of the year. And of course, grass is just dying. It's brown, and we're seeing dirt kind of popping up in between this kind of really thin grass. Things are not looking good out there as a result of this heat and dry conditions that we've been seeing. So let's break it down here. The reason why things are looking the way they are is because we can see that it's been very, very warm, and that warmth is centered on Western Canada, anomalously warm. The month of May, the greatest anomalies in the world in terms of temperatures here. We can see that heat centered over the Northwest Territories, Northern Alberta, Northeast BC, Northern Saskatchewan. Just incredible warmth through the month of May. And it began even before that. Looking here in Calgary, we can see that heat really started. There was a big pattern change April 23rd. And since then, the daily average temperature has not dropped below seasonal except for June 1st. In many cases, very warm, much above seasonal through that period. And then we look at the precipitation through that time as well. Very dry, some light snow events, light rain events. May 22nd, the last meaningful precip we received in Calgary, 18 millimeters fell that day. And it's been just bone dry since then. We can see we're running a significant moisture deficit here in Calgary now. So as a result of that, the water table is very low, not much water around at all. So we really need to get some significant soaking rains in the coming weeks to kind of salvage this situation. You can see here precipitation. It's really a story of the haves and have-nots across the province. Across northern Alberta, it's been extremely dry. And of course, we're seeing lots of active fire up in that area, extending into northeast BC, as well as a big chunk of south central southern Alberta here. Not much precipitation received. This is since May 15th. There has been some scattered convection here, so it may not have hit the rain gauges in some areas. Heavier rains across the far south as well, Montana and adjacent areas of Saskatchewan. A little bit above average precipitation in some of those areas in recent weeks, but it just seems to be stopping at the Alberta border here. And so significantly dry conditions there out in the fields. Of course, some of southern Alberta here, Lethbridge region into Brooks, getting back into Wheatland County east of Calgary, as well as along Highway 3 there. St. Mary Reservoir areas there, moving into the Medicine Hat region. That is irrigated there, but very dry for dryland farming here. We're already seeing some losses, agricultural losses being reported in southern Alberta. So very concerning there, of course, as well. As a result of that warmth and dry weather, we're seeing active wildfires continuing, 77 active wildfires as of the evening of June 12th. And about a third of those remain out of control. Some of those fires, because they're just so big, and there's so much fire line out there, they're probably not going to be under control until the winter time. We're going to have to see those things smoldering throughout the summer. Many large active wildfires continuing across northern Alberta. We did have that godsend of a rain event that kind of cooled things off in west central Alberta through the later part of May there. But those fires are even heating up once again. You get hot, dry, windy weather persisting, and that's what happens. We can see here from Mike Flanagan this incredible graphic showing that we're seeing, just move it over to the right a bit, we've surpassed 1.4 million hectares as of June 12th. So that's the most area burned Alberta has ever seen since we've been reliably keeping records of area burned in this province. Also taking a look at this incredible graphic from Neil Leroux, we can see this is fire radiative power. Basically, the fire season has just really begun. We can see fire season in Canada doesn't really start to ramp up till the summer months, June, July, and August. And we are way beyond that. And this is just into mid-June here. So unprecedented fire season here in Canada, topping 5 million hectares burned already. It remains to be seen where we're going to be going from here. Of course, the dry conditions translating to extremely low soil moisture as well here, of course, for agricultural purposes, less than once in 50-year lows, as we can see here across much of southern, central Alberta, even portions of northern Alberta. So very significantly concerning conditions there with severe drought developing. Not great. We're starting to see crop emergence. And if we don't get those critical rains in the next week or two, we could be looking at some portions seeing some agricultural disaster Foothills County also considering declaring a disaster for drought if we don't see meaningful rains very soon, so that we can tap into some federal resources there, because very dry conditions persisting there. And we're going to be seeing significant hits on yields this year if this continues. Elsewhere across the prairies, we can see it's quite dry, but that drought largely centered on Alberta. We can see with less than 40% of soil moisture, and in many cases, much less than that across much of the region. Incredible as well, looking at the snow pillows, we saw snow just disappear out of the mountains very early. Here we can see at Sunshine Village, the snow water equivalent on that snow pillow there. It just showed no more snow right before the end of May. It was all gone. That's 4 to 5 weeks ahead of schedule, as we can see there. You can look at some of these other stations here, like the Elbow region. This is upstream of the Elbow River in Calgary as well. Late May, the snow is gone, several weeks ahead of normal. And even more incredibly out here, the snow pillow at Three Isle Lake just disappeared probably there around May 26th or 27th, a full 6 weeks or so ahead of schedule. So as a result of that, of course, we did not have much of that runoff getting into our rivers. We're seeing concerningly low rivers here. This is at the Scarcity Bridge, the west side of Calgary along the Elbow River. You can see just how low we are compared to normal. We should be up in this range here. And this is the result, of course, of that spring runoff, as well as our June monsoon. And so typically they'd be, city would be, reducing the amount of water in the dam to make room for all that runoff and that rainwater coming in. But in this case here, we can see we are already extremely low. Glenmore Dam here, we can see Glenmore Reservoir. The water level is starting to really go up. It seems that they're trying to kind of, capitalize on this extremely low water that we're seeing, so that we can, peak water demand tends to come in the summer, right? So we got to store up some water in the reservoir there. So it really seems that instead of bleeding out the reservoir, we are kind of reducing the amount of outflow coming out of the dam to try to build that water reserve in the reservoir. And we can see the result of that downstream here in the Elbow River in Calgary, extremely low flow. Of course, that is controlled at the dam, but we can see that it's incredibly low compared to normal. And that, of course, goes all the way back to that extremely dry winter that we had, with very, very little in the way of runoff. Of course, here's the Bow River in Calgary as well, also very low. Upstream, we have Ghost Dam at Ghost Lake as well. So very low water there. This can change if we do see some sort of miraculous rain events, some big rain events in the coming weeks. Of course, that will be great for the water table, our kind of river basins in southern and central Alberta. We would really, really benefit from some steady, long duration soaking rain events. At this point, that's what we're really going to need to stave off, disastrous conditions this summer in terms of more wildfire in northern Alberta, in terms of potential water restrictions. We've already got some water restrictions in Canmore as a result of low water there, and they're also having a bit of an issue and kind of investigating where all that water is going, especially in the overnight hours. But concerning conditions already, and it's only early June. So we really need these rains to come through mid to late June. And so let's talk a little bit about what might be coming here. We can see this is via Weather Bell and the European Ensemble. Looks like we got a pattern change moving in here for the next 10 days or so, with troughing developing over BC and Alberta. And that is a promising sign. We're going to be seeing cooler temperatures, at least over the next 10 days or so. This is taking us out to about June the 25th. And there's good agreement among many different models here on that. So what does that mean for precipitation? Well, we can see here the Euro Ensemble also showing a nice positive anomaly, wet anomalies here in Alberta for the next 10 days or so, as we see some heavy rains fall. That's what we're calling for. That's what we're hoping for. These rains, we've been seeing in some model runs, well-advertised rains kind of falling out of the models as we get even closer to the time. But there's a really strong signal with this pattern change here that we're going to be seeing some wetter than average conditions in Alberta. Will it be enough to really quell all of these, the wildfire situation, the potential water shortages, and the looming potential significant impacts to agriculture? It remains to be seen. But if we do end up seeing sort of our classic June monsoon events here, it would be really good if we had, one of these stalled upper lows that typically forms here over eastern Washington, Idaho, driving that upslope flow and some large scale lift on basically large scale rising air here over southern Alberta that brings that heavy rain. It taps into kind of moist air coming up the Great Plains here from perhaps as far as the Gulf of Mexico. But it's been quite wet in this area, so we may be able to tap into some good moisture coming into southern Alberta here and really start to help alleviate that drought at a critical time. And then, of course, here, bringing this back, looks like our first little rain event is going to come through between late Tuesday and early Thursday. This model here showing that there's going to be a fair amount of rain across the province, decent totals there, getting into portions of southern Alberta along the foothills and into the eastern BC interior ranges there as well. And of course, as we get further out, less confidence in individual rain events, but it does look like a fairly wet signal. This is going to be critical for us because we are incredibly dry here in the province of Alberta, and we are seeing the effects of that. Thanks for joining me. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time.